UFC Vegas 48. Shawnee Schuler is on, our own, very own Johnny Walker going against Jamahal Hill in the main event. Ireland's adopted son, Johnny Walker, coming in again to try and get back into the win column after his defeat against Thiago Santos last time out. Jamahal Hill, as I like to call him. He is coming back in here after a swift knockout in his last fight. Top prospect Hill coming in against pretty much we're treading on UFC veteran status now for Johnny Walker, I guess. And I'm going to start off by going to Sean Sheehan if he's ready. And I want him to tell us how much he loves Jamahal Hill and how good of a fighter that he is.
Well, 1 second. I'm just tweeting out to YouTube link. So I kind of question myself this week, to be honest. This is utter professionalism here. Sorry to no one else. We've no fucking big producers here. We've no big fucking producers. Look, I think this is actually a very even fight. I think the last okay, maybe we don't want to get straight into the fight. We want to cause a bit of a ruckus here, and I will do that quickly here. But the last time, a lot of people gave Johnny Walker a bit of shit, and John Kavanagh as well, a lot of shit for that performance. I actually look, they deserved a bit of shit because you didn't do enough, and anyone who doesn't do enough, I think they'll probably say it themselves. But I actually think it was a good performance. So I think that performance, if it leads on from it, will lead to a more even fight. I've been a big fan of Johnny Walker as well for a long time, and I think he needed this a little bit. But Jamahal Hill, I think he's a special talent. If he doesn't win this fight, if he doesn't become a champion this year, if he doesn't become a champion next year, I think he will become a champion. And he said it today at the weigh-ins, the media day, funnily enough, about sometimes you have one loss and everyone writes you off. You know, like Spencer has done to him there. You have one bad performance and everyone writes you off. No one thinks you're any good anymore. But do you know what? Do you know what? I do. I think he's good. I think he is a fantastic fighter. I think he'll be a champion. I think there is no one in that division, apart from maybe Yuri Prochazka, but he's at a different level of experience and all of that. I don't think anyone has the skill set of Jamahal Hill. I think he is brilliant. I think he's athletically magnificent. I think he hits hard. I think he moves unbelievably well for the size of the man, and I think there's no stopping him now. That's my
Spencer, tell Sean why he's wrong.
So I don't even necessarily think that he's wrong. I just don't have the supreme confidence in him that Sean has. I think the quote was, I don't necessarily agree with Sean's assessment of him becoming a champion, but I think he's quite good. And what I'm interested in, and the reason I'm interested in this fight, is because this is that test, right? This is that next step up that you have to pass after you fight Jimmy Crute. You knock Jimmy Crute out in 48 seconds, and you do look good. And it's not, he said the thing in media about you lose one fight and everybody's off you and whatever. He's got a limited number of fights. Like, it's a small sample size. And so it's not that you're necessarily off a guy, but you can only go on past performances. And so he looked great against lesser competition and kind of, got that good win over OSP. Was kind of a shop-worn guy at this point. And he goes out and he loses and gets his elbow dislocated by Paul Craig. And it sort of sets a bar. So you have to wait to see what happens next. And so if he goes out and he destroys Jimmy Crute the way he did, now we see the next test. Johnny Walker, for whatever faults he may have, is that next step up. And this is where we see if Jamahal Hill can progress straight through to Sean's all-time great status that he's ready to give him, or if he's got to, take a couple steps, kind of like what we're seeing with Johnny Walker, right? Like, they could probably sit down and have a conversation about how people jump off the bandwagon real quick, because Johnny Walker at one point is 3-0, and there's a whole lot of people using John Jones's name in reference to Johnny Walker. And then all of a sudden it goes off the rails. And the really weird thing, the really crazy thing to me is he's still only 29. He still could be the guy that turns into this great fighter in this division where, generally speaking, outside of John Jones, we get guys that are a little bit older that have success. Current champion is 363 days younger than me. God love you, Glover Teixeira. And so this is the fight to me that, we see if Johnny Walker is going to become something, or if Jamahal Hill is going to become the guy that Sean believes he is.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about his last fight against Silva, I mean, I think when I was looking back on it and when I wrote preview, I was like, I think for Walker, it was like what we've seen before from him in the past was that wildness and that explosive power, which seen him win a couple of good fights, but also got him in trouble at the same time. And what we've seen was a more subdued Johnny Walker in his last fight. And I think what we're looking forward to seeing in the next fight is, has he found the middle ground between both? Because I think at times against Silva, he may have been a little bit too defensive, and it ultimately cost him that fight. I mean, I'll go to you, Harry, to answer Thomas's question there. If we could talk about the fight maybe a little bit, who do you think that the 5 rounds suits more?
So I think if we were talking about the Johnny Walker in the Ryan Spann fight, you'd have to say Jamahal Hill, right? If you're talking about what we saw against Thiago Santos, then really? Is my mic fucked? 1 second.
You don't have it up to your mouth anyway, so that was...
Oh, that's true. That's true. I apologize. Hello. We'll talk again. We'll try again, lads. I apologize. I apologize. It's been a late one. So if we're talking about the Thiago Santos fight, I think Johnny Walker is a different animal now. Whether he can keep that against Jamahal Hill, who will bring the fire and will entice him into sort of a quicker, more explosive, more back and forth fight, I would say that the 5 rounds suits Jamahal Hill a little bit more. However, the reason why I say that, and I think the crux of this fight for me is about decision making. And I know this is actually nothing to do with Thomas's question about 5 rounds, but I guess it kind of is if I can loop it together. So the thing that worries me the most about Johnny Walker is that in situations he's uncomfortable in, he panics. And when he panics, he makes crazy decisions. If we go back to that Ryan Spann fight, okay, he won, but everyone will remember those insane decision-making faults and errors that Spann didn't quite capitalize on when he hit the ground, right? And Johnny obviously has that rocket in his back pocket, and he used it to full effect, and fair play to him for doing so. But I think if you're in a similar situation against Jamahal Hill will find the coffin nails and put you away. However, Jamahal Hill has obviously shown, and Paul Craig being a specialist, has shown that he's susceptible on the ground to things too. So I would like to say that I'd pick Jamahal Hill over the distance to just make better decisions and pick his shots a little bit more and entice Johnny Walker into big explosive movements and pick him off from there. But if Johnny Walker is happy to stick to a game plan and is able to stick to a game plan, I think this is a really stern test for Jamahal Hill. And we will see if he has the fight IQ to be able to deal with a guy who is big, who is explosive, who is powerful, but is also sticking to a game plan.
What do you think of that, Sean Denny?
Yeah, I would generally agree with Harry. I think for Walker, what he really needs to do is mind that chin. I think he's going to have to do similar to what he did in the last fight against Thiago. But I think he's going to need to learn when to explode. Like, I think without that explosion, he's going to get outpointed. He doesn't throw enough in that style. So he needs to find a way to mesh the two together. If he goes in wild like he did against Spann, it's trouble. And then if he tries to point score it as well, he's also in trouble. So he needs to meet right in the middle and make the right decision when to basically run, is how I see it.
Yeah, like, I mean, Hill's boxing is tremendous, and that was on show the last time against Crew. And I don't think that Johnny Walker coming in here and trying to outbox someone like Hill is going to be the wise choice. What I'd like to see from Walker on the feet is definitely have him at distance and using his kicks. I don't think he's going to have to worry about the takedown, but I think maybe perhaps a wrinkle that Walker might use in this is his grappling. And maybe I'll go to Sean Sheen first and ask him that question, is that, you know, we've seen the weakness against someone like Paul Craig, who is an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, but, you know, was there a weakness there in Hill's game that you've seen, or how do you think it will go?
Maybe there is that weakness, but I don't think you can take that from the Paul Craig fight, honestly. Look, Paul Craig is Paul Craig. We know what he is. It's like getting caught in a Terry Edom. Was it Terry Edom was with the triangle, wasn't it, back in the day? And you know, some people have certain moves you're going to get caught in, or if you get into that position against Paul Craig I don't care if you're John Jones, fucking Colby Jones, Mike Jones, whoever the fuck you are, he's taking your arm fucking home with him. That's simple as that. If it's literally the greatest fighter of all time, you get into that position, you're not getting out. And that's what is that from Jamahal Hill? Is that he's no good at jiu-jitsu? Is that he's, you know, a bad grappler or whatever? Maybe it is, but I don't think you can take it from that. I would like to see him in more jiu-jitsu positions against other jiu-jitsu guys and see him more tested. You know, Spencer,
I think it was naivety more than anything else, really.
Exactly. But we talk about it all the time with the Irish guys coming up, say, like a Paul Hughes in his first fight with Vucinic. I think if he had that fight again, if he had a bit more of the experience and fight IQ in him, he would have won that fight. And now we'll see later on. But Vucinic is, you know, that's a preview for another day. But I think it's naivety in that occasion more than it is a disparity in ability or a lack of ability on Jamahal Hill's case. You look at someone, say, like a Gaethje against Habib. To me, that looks like a massive disparity in skill and a big issue with someone's jiu-jitsu when you just get destroyed like that. If you get caught in one move or caught in one submission, I think it's a little bit different. But I think you basically have it right in terms of what you think the fight will be. I think this fight's going to go long. And the issue, and a great question from Thomas about who does a 5-round suit. The 5 rounds only came in 2 weeks ago. We better not forget that, or a week ago even, you know. That's not a long time to prepare for 5 rounds, and it's an appropriate week, I suppose, to talk about that, because this is the week where Bellator have their first ever main event that's not a title fight, that's 5 rounds. And it's interesting because in the UFC, I think we have seen fighters better prepared for title fights because they have had maybe 2 or 3 fight night main events. Like Makhachev now next week, if he fights for the title, he'll have had at least, you know, 1 or 2 5-round fights to prepare for that. And it's a little bit, obviously it's very different. We've talked about it many times, especially myself and Graham on the podcast, about the differences in your game, your tactics, especially going into the fight, and how you fight in terms of the output you give in a 3-round fight as opposed to a 5-round fight. And it's massive in this fight because I think Jamahal Hill is the type of guy who will want to put more output on Johnny Walker because Johnny Walker's output has dwindled in the last few fights. Dwindled on purpose now. I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's just a fact. I would say if you looked at the numbers, I would almost guarantee I haven't looked at them. I don't believe in numbers, but that's coming from someone with a degree in maths. That's probably a stupid thing to say. But I think the 5 rounds might have changed that. So he's going to have to find a different way to fight and a different way to win the fight. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does and if he can cope with the 5 rounds. We saw Johnny Walker prove that last time, that he was able to cope with the 5 rounds. He arguably won that fight, a very close fight by anyone's estimation. So to me, even though I'm a massive fan of Jamahal Hill and I think he will be a champion one day, I think on that part of it, I think it's advantage Johnny Walker. Now, do I think Johnny Walker will win the fight? I'm not sure. One of my betting tips this week over on Sherdog is Johnny Walker to win the fight by decision at 9-1, which I think is a bit mad. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I made a few points there.
I wish I didn't bet on Casey O'Neill and put some money down that and said, let's take it.
Fuck Casey O'Neill. No offense. I don't.
My goodness, bringing shame on the name. No, I definitely agree. And I think this fight is definitely going to be fought as a long fight. It's going to go into the later rounds. Interesting that you mentioned that it is only kind of a short notice 5-round fight. Spencer, I just wanted, maybe you could piggyback off of Sean's comments there, and maybe I'll put this to you. Do you think that Johnny Walker has become a little bit more defensive and gun shy because he is wary of getting hurt, and he's afraid that his chin doesn't really match up to some big strikers in the light heavyweight division?
I don't know if it's necessarily the getting hurt part or that his chin doesn't match up, because we haven't seen, like, Ryan Spann is a great big human being that hits differently than a lot of light heavyweights. We'll see if Jamahal Hill can hit like Ryan Spann on Saturday. I think it's a little bit of, once you get in there with some of these tougher guys, the Corey Andersons, his takedown defense was exposed by Nikita Krylov. You start to understand that you can't just be the wild, crazy, rush everything guy where you're going to land these wild shots that he was landing early, right? Like, you go back and watch those first 3 victories. They're phenomenal to watch, but they are absolute, like, just stupid knockouts that you couldn't predict them happening that way again if you gave them 20 chances. You're not catching Khalil Roundtree in that tie plum and mashing him with elbows. You're not hitting that spinning elbow on Justin Ladat and whatever I don't even remember what he hit on Misha Serkinov, because all I remember is that he dislocated his shoulder doing the worm celebrating, which is just quintessential Johnny Walker. I think to go to Thomas's question, I think it's one of those things where Jamahal Hill, it favors him if he pushes early because he has the ability, and it favors Johnny Walker the later it goes. Like if it gets into 3, 4, and 5, I think it favors Johnny Walker for what Sean said. He's been there. He's done it. He knows he can survive through and kind of have some stuff left in the 5th. And I really think that fight against Thiago Santos is going to be a very good thing for Johnny Walker long term. I think the more time he spends in one place training with the same team, with the same coaches, is also going to help him. And so I honestly think, like you saying, it's 9-1, Sean, for Johnny Walker by decision might make me have to turn into a degenerate again and find some money that I don't necessarily care about losing. But I think this is going to be a really interesting fight. And I got to put predictions out tomorrow and I still don't know which way I'm going. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And I'd love to hear what the other boys think about how these things affect the fight.
Sean Denny, give it to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a feeling that Walker's going to avoid it very early. He's going to try and take away sort of a bit of the explosivity of Jamahal Hill. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him grappling on the cage a lot, doing a lot of clinching. Anything to try and slow it down, to get it into the 3rd round, 4th round. And then I could see him try and use his kickboxing, or if the wrestling is available, try to take it to the ground and sort of ease it out. Like, I think we love craziness in MMA, and we get so disappointed when people don't keep that craziness. So I think we can be harsher on those people. But I think for Walker to win at this level now, I think that's the way he's going to have to go, unless he finds an opening. And if Hill gets tired, Walker can pounce.
Harry?
I'm just not sure that I trust the new version, the game plan, I'm going to stick and be patient Johnny Walker yet. And I feel as though somebody that you know, he had so much fanfare and so much revere around him, and fans were so high on him because of that style, because of that wild man style. If I'm Jamahal Hill, I'm going to try and drag him into that. And if I can drag him into that, then I'm going to drag him late. Or if I'm Jamahal Hill with my crisp boxing and my slick counters, I'm just going to wait for something crazy to come, and I'm going to try and land big on him. I think one thing that's interesting about these is there's just the size of these fellas. Jamahal Hill is 6'4", Johnny Walker is 6'6". Johnny Walker has an 82-inch reach and Jamahal Hill has a 79-inch reach. So both of these are absolutely monstrous men, right? Huge men. And I mean, look, if I don't really know who I want to pick. And I think this is similar to all of you guys. Like, I think it can go one of 4 ways. Either Johnny Walker lands something crazy, Jamahal Hill catches him when he's doing something crazy, Jamahal Hill drags him late over those 5 rounds, or Johnny Walker turns into the guy that he really should be and is patient, picks his moments exactly as Denny says, explodes when he needs to explode, drains the gas tank of Jamahal Hill, and shows that he has a complete MMA game. And I have literally no fucking clue which way it's going to go. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same too. It is one of those fights where you don't know what is going to happen. And then especially you really don't know what's going to happen if it does go into the later rounds, because they haven't been training for a 5-round fight. So who's going to last the pace? I mean, I'm going to bring up Daniel's comment here where he says he thinks he avoids early and will wrestle late. I think that's one way that Walker can go. But another way I think that Walker can go as well is kind of grapple early and then strike late. Because if you grapple early in a fight, you want to get Hill working his arms, getting the blood filling up in his arms, and he's going to lose that power. So, I mean, there is 2 options that he can go there, and I'm interested. The thing about it is when you're coming in and you're trying to initiate the grappling early on against someone like Hill, if you leave yourself open and get clipped, you're going to get knocked out. It's a
Sorry to interrupt you, but Johnny Walker's not exactly... Johnny Walker's not and I'm not saying you're saying it, but it seems like it may be a team. Johnny Walker's not Cain Velasquez, like he's not exactly a fucking cardio monster. And like, what's to say that Jamahal Hill doesn't have great cardio or better cardio than him? Like, it's easy for a top level fighter like Johnny Walker to fight in the manner he fought in his last fight and look very good cardio wise from minute 1 to minute 5, because you're not expending the amount of cardio you would be fucking backflipping over bitches.
And
like,
that's where I was going before I was rudely interrupted. But I mean, it is easy to fight. You're dead right. It is easy to fight 5 rounds when your output isn't there. So I mean, yeah, there is. That's the fine balances of this fight. So I mean, I think that we are going to probably see a patient battle on the feet, that rounds are going to be won by maybe 1 or 2 strikes on either side. It could go either way. I think we're going to see something similar than the Silva fight. I think maybe Walker might fancy himself to win a fight like that with maybe just a tiny bit more output on the feet. But he cannot stay in striking distance, in boxing distance, I mean, of Hill. I think that's danger for him. But at 9-1 for Walker to win this decision, that's very tempting for me. I mean, maybe we'll just go around and wrap this fight up real quickly, and if we can get a prediction from everyone. We'll start with Shawnee Sheen.
I don't know, honestly. I think one of them will win, one of them will lose. Maybe a draw. Not sitting on the fence, but that would be my prediction. Look, I think it'll be a good fight. I'm just interested to see if Jamahal Hill can catch him. And if Johnny Walker's defensively good enough to stop someone with an offensive output like Jamahal Hill. Because with all due respect to Thiago Silva, I don't know if he had the child yet, but he's gone around on fucking no knees. He's not what he used to be. Like, Thiago Silva was one of the best fighters we've seen in a while in that light heavyweight.
Who's Thiago Silva?
Santos.
Thank you.
Why did everyone call him Silva? I was wondering, actually. I believe Thiago Santos. I did that. Do you know, I wrote a whole article before calling Jacare Silva Jacare Santos, the whole article, about 3,000 words, and it was up about a day and a half before I realized. I was like, oh, fuck. But anyway, yeah, Thiago. You're interrupting me now. What was I saying? I don't know. Someone's going to win anyway, and fair play. Look, whoever wins, congratulations, some fair play.
One person that's not going to win is Thiago Silva, and we know that for sure.
He might. Last point in it from me, and then the rest of you can talk about it, and then we'll stop the stream because there's no other fights in this shit card. I think Jamahal Hill will be able to land a lot of shots, right? And it's up to Johnny Walker to adjust to that a lot, because the last fight he wasn't able to adjust. And you know, we can talk about Johnny judging and all a lot if we want here, but if we're talking about impactful shots, if Johnny Walker's fighting off the back foot and he's jabbing and he's doing a great job defensively and he's landing a few leg kicks and a few jabs and something like that, it's all great. It's lovely. I love a jab and a leg kick as much as the next MMA fanatic. But if Jamahal Hill is coming around the side of him, jumping up and landing a big right hand and maybe pushing him back towards the fence or maybe making him circle out, that's what wins rounds in 2022. And that will be an issue, I think, for Johnny Walker. If he can solve that, he's a massive chance, but I think he needs to solve that. That's probably why I'm just about going for Jamahal Hill to win it here. That's my prediction. But Johnny Walker by decision at 9-1, I think, is too big to pass up. Just
before I move on to the guys, Sean, if Hill does get the win, where would you put him in the light heavyweight division?
I don't know. I see Ankalaev is fighting. Who's Ankalaev fighting in the main event coming up soon? Someone tell me. Santos, is it? Is it
Thiago Santos?
Yeah,
Thiago
Santos. So like, I'm not massive on Ankalaev, to be honest. And I know a lot of people are. I know Harry is there very much, but he changes them to Harry Q. I just saw that. But I think he's good. Maybe Ankalaev if he wins versus Hill if he wins. Maybe that's the fight, a number one contender fight. I know Prochazka is going to be fighting Glover later on the year. It's
funny. Ankalaev is fighting Thiago Santos next.
Yeah, that's what we
otherwise known as Thiago Silva.
Yeah, that was the conversation we literally just had. But yeah, so it matched him up. Winners, bit of a tournament. Suddenly, Shawnee Shelby fucking matchmaking. The light heavyweight division is looking good, but all on board Jamahal Hill bandwagon. Let's go, Spencer.
Yeah, I think it's what you said, Sean. I think it's Jamahal Hill's going to be pressing, and it's a matter of, one, can he catch him? And two, if he doesn't, can Johnny Walker do enough to counteract that early pressure, that forward movement, and the big shots that are going to come? We know Jamahal Hill is going to be throwing shots early. He's going to throw some head kicks in there. He's going to be looking for counter opportunities every time Johnny Walker has a big explosive movement and swings something wide, just like he did against Jimmy Crute. It's going to come down to whether he lands, and if he doesn't, can Johnny Walker do enough? And I'm just not sure that Johnny Walker, to what Harry was saying earlier, is capable of making the right decisions when it does get chaotic. Like if he is able to correct all that stuff from the Ryan Spann fight, and we haven't seen it because we didn't see any chaos in the Thiago Santos fight. If he's able to correct that, it can certainly work in his favor, and he can certainly win this fight. I just think we're going to get to a point where he's going to get hit with something. It's going to get weird. It's going to get messy, and I don't trust him to make the right decisions. So I think I'm going Jamahal Hill as well.
Sean, Denny.
An interesting little caveat for me. If John Kavanagh travels and is in the corner, I think Walker might stick to the game plan better.
He is traveling. He is heading over there. He is, yeah.
He's not over in Brave now, was he? Didn't he put up a picture?
No, he's definitely traveling over there.
I know that.
So I think with Kavanagh there, he'll be able to stick to a plan and avoid getting into a crazy scrap. But I think if Kavanagh wasn't there, I think you could draw him out a lot more. But I think he's going to use his better experience here just to squeak it out, probably a decision.
Harry Powell, give us your thoughts.
New name, Harry Kuehl. I'm picking Jamahal Hill over the distance. I think that I generally always go with a fighter that I think is a more complete package and a fighter that's more cerebral, more well put together. And I think Jamahal Hill is that. As I said previously, I don't trust Johnny Walker yet to not turn Mark Viduka, you absolute fucking legend. I don't trust Johnny Walker to not get drawn into a firefight when somebody like Jamahal Hill is pressing forward. Johnny Walker is going to feel that pressure. He's going to be like, what do I need to do? Is he just going to circle out and try and land those counter hooks? Or is he going to throw some mad fucking flying knee off the cage? I would lean towards that he's going to do the crazy thing. And if he does, I think either the more that happens, the more it saps on his gas tank. Ian Hart, brilliant. Or, Jesus fucking Christ, this is an absolute shambles of a live stream, isn't it, lads? Or he's going to get caught. But I will say, Sean Sheehan, mate, Ankalaev is the absolute fucking truth, mate. The fucking truth. Don't come here with that upper lip to me. Ankalaev is the fucking truth. I would love to see. I think Ankalaev walks through Thiago Santos, and I'd love to see Jamahal Hill.
I couldn't pick Ankalaev out from a lineup, to be honest.
When is that? Oh, he's the guy who spent 3 years fighting Ayan Kutalaba. I think it was Ankalaev.
Absolutely, he did. Yeah.
When is that fight?
As Dwight in The Office said, the eyes are the grind of the head.
That is true. I'm kind of leaning towards Hill myself. I think that Hill will probably get ahead early in the striking exchanges, which might force Walker to take a few more risks, which might ultimately lead to his downfall. So that's my simple analysis of that fight. But eat all real nutrition bars. Forgot to give them the shout out at the start. Get that shit into your belly. It's very good. So let's move on to the co-main event.
Promo code SevereMMA, get 15% off.
Get it off. It's on the bottom there. There you go. Do it. Are those the sunglasses, Sean? You still haven't sent them over to me.
No one fucking. I said whoever.
You know my address.
The YouTube thing. They have fucking teeth brush as well. Is it toothbrushes?
Toothbrush.
Toothbrush or toothbrushes?
All depends whether you're using one or two.
Thiago Silva and teeth brushes. Just stop it here, lads. It's done. It's fucking done.
Let's go to the co-main event. I'm going to go to Spencer first. Kyle Dawkins has had such a stop-start kind of going so far in the UFC. Was defeated, had a no contest in his last bout. Had a big chance coming in here. He was supposed to be taking on Julian Marquez. Marquez had to withdraw, so now he's stuck with Jamie Pickett. Give us your assessment on this fight.
I mean, first and foremost, I'm just happy that Kyle Dawkins actually has a fight. I talked to him before he was supposed to run it back with Kevin Holland. he understood the way that the fight went, the decision went with the Kevin Holland fight of it being a no contest. He was hoping that it, didn't happen right there in the moment because it felt pretty shitty to have gotten the finish and then have Dan Miragliotta look at you and be like, yeah, no, I screwed that up and it's going to be a no contest now. We're not even going to pretend for the evening that you got a victory. And I also think that that rematch had the potential to be a fight where a lot of people understood how good Kyle Daukaus is. I know some of the shine has come off Kevin Holland and he's fighting trolls on the internet now and whatever, but I think Kyle Daukaus is one of those guys that he just needs a chance to get out there and get things rolling and fight consistently. I've talked to both he and his brother, and we laugh every time that Chris has just had this progression of every 4 or 5 months, he gets a fight, turns up in Vegas, everything goes the way it's supposed to go in terms of preparation, and then he goes out and fights. And 5 months later, the same thing happens. And Kyle has just been change of opponents, pushed back, new opponent, guy can't get a visa. Nothing has been straight for him. So at least he gets an opponent here. Jamie Pickett's very different than Julian Marquez, so he's had to change on the fly again. But I think he's talented enough. And I think he's one of these guys that, despite having kind of a rough start to his UFC career, he has the potential and the upside to put it together if he gets the chance to compete consistently and go out and build on. So I think he's going to win on Saturday. If he can turn that into fighting again in 3 or 4 months and parlay that into a nice little winning streak and a couple of fights and get 3 or 4 in this year, then I think he can move forward. But it's tough when you're not competing and you're constantly changing. And then every so often you get thrown in there and you just have a bad result, right? Like the Phil Haas fight was just a bad result. Phil Haas is a tough dude, better grinder, better grappler, outworked him. But I think he can still have some success this weekend and going forward this year.
Yeah, very good points. And the winner will be the 195-pound champion of the UFC. Anybody else have any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say what Spencer wanted to say but didn't say. Jamie Pickett just isn't very good. I've watched 3 Jamie Pickett fights now. I watched the Jordan Wright fight, and Jordan Wright is very explosive in the first round, and these things do happen. But the specific one I watched was the Joseph Holmes one, and it was basically just 2 lads doing nothing, and Jamie Pickett just kind of got the nod. His takedown defense isn't fantastic. His offensive wrestling isn't fantastic. He doesn't look like he likes to get hit or knows how to get hit, right? Eyes closing when shots are coming, fading away, hands in the air, all that sort of stuff. Whereas Kyle Daukaus looks like a semi-technical, well put together fighter. So you always have to pick the more technical fighter, and I'd expect Daukaus to get it done here.
Good. Parker Porter and Alan Badeau is on the main card as well, and we'll move on to Jim Miller's fight.
I actually like that fight.
Oh, come on.
I actually do. I think Badeau's not bad at all, and he probably, Badeau's one of these guys, he'll either fucking knock you out in the first 3 minutes or he'll give up. He's one of those lads. And it's one of my, not spoiler alert, but it might be one of my bets for the week. Someone gets knocked out in that, it's almost even money. Fucking guaranteed, lads. Free money. Betting that.
Anybody else have any thoughts on these? A little bit harsh by me, perhaps.
Thoughts I haven't done the card.
He doesn't know who Ankalaev is, but he fucking researches the Parker Porter fight. Come the fuck on, lads.
This weekend I know who he was. That's the way I work in MMA now. I might look at you, possibly.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this?
Alan Badeau is a trainer partner of Cyril Gann. So he's quite well thought of over in the MMA factory. He's great judo, decent enough kickboxer. So we can get it done in a few ways, but as you say, he has to get it done early. Otherwise, he sort of loses interest.
I think the fight that really interests me, just for the potential craziness, is Joaquin Buckley versus Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Both of these guys are going to come in. Both of them are going to throw mad shots. I think Joaquin Buckley in the last couple of fights, I think he dined out a little bit on the knockout, right? And believed in that source a little bit too much. And in some of his more recent fights, let me just pull up his record. I can't remember exactly who he fought, but I remember watching them. In his more recent fights, Alessio Di Chirico, that was the one. Like in the Alessio Di Chirico one, he just believed that a big shot was going to come, and Alessio was like, "It's not, mate. Watch." And he got himself finished, right? But then he turns it around and against Antonio Arroyo, who isn't a terrible fighter himself, he went away, grinded away, and in the third round put him away. So I think that's a really interesting fight. And Abdul Razak Al Hassan, obviously super veteran of the UFC now, absolutely blammed Alessio Di Chirico. So we've got a nice little MMA three-way there. But he's coming off 3 losses. And look at the 3 losses too, right? Jacob Balcoon, grinder. Chaos Williams, all right, loses in. That was a nuts knockout as well. And then Munir Aziz, who I'm pretty high on. You know, I think if this matchup has been made for fireworks, right? This matchup has been made to kick off the main card. Everyone tunes in. It's a banger. And then we get to see some Jim Miller happiness, hopefully. And it rolls on from there, right?
Yeah, Jim Miller. Yeah, hopefully that fight. Oh, excuse me. Hopefully Jim Miller, can leave us all happy on Saturday night. This is his 50th fight, mixed martial arts fight. He's still winning. He's an absolute legend of the game. I mean, coming over that Lyme disease issue that he had, you know, he had a little bit of a dip in his career. Coming over that, to be able to come out of that, to still compete at the highest level is absolutely phenomenal to me. He's still picking up wins. I love to see it. It's going to stop sometime. I hope it doesn't stop Saturday night. Spencer, how do you see this fight with Mata going for Jim Miller on Saturday night?
I'm very nervous. I'm a huge Jim Miller fan. I've been talking to Jimmy for years now. Just one of the most professional, like the whole fact that his name, and everybody understand, and everybody probably knows the story by now of him being Jim fucking Miller, is it speaks volumes about who he is, right? He just picks up they call him, he picks up the phone, they say, "This guy," and he goes, "Yeah, all right." Or they send him an email, and he sends an email back in 10 minutes and just says yes. That's all it says. There's no bitching, there's no moaning, there's no asking for somebody higher in the rankings. He just turns up and does his job. And I think he's aged well as a veteran. He understands his limitations and where he's at. And so when it is Nicholas Mota, who's a tough little bastard that throws heavy hands and, you know, has been in there and has some wins over some good people. You go back and look through it. Got a win over Joe Selecki, who's doing well, beat Jim Miller. And so we got another nice little MMA three-way in there. It's a tough matchup. I think it has the potential to be an everybody gets happy moment where Jim Miller is savvy and veteran and gets a win, because Nicholas Mota is more of a get you out of there in a hurry kind of guy than he is a stick around and grind it out. But I'm just happy to see Jimmy make the walk, man. Every time he does it, every time CCR gets piping through an arena and he walks out there and has himself a fight, I'm happy to see it, because he really is, to me, one of the last of a dying breed of guys that just fight everybody. I asked him once, like, when are you gonna, like, what's the deciding factor for calling it quits? Like, how much longer are you gonna keep doing this? He said, well, I haven't fought everybody in the division yet. He's continuing to cross names off because he keeps fighting all the guys that keep turning up, and we all love him for it, and rightfully so. So let him keep fighting until he's, you know, he hasn't shown. The other thing that he's always said is it's not like he's going out there and when he loses, it doesn't look like some of these other veteran guys, right? Some of his contemporaries where they're going out and getting finished quick, or it's non-competitive. He's in every fight. He's tough as they come still. He's still able to be out there. And so I don't know if it's going to be a happy moment or a sad moment on Saturday, but Jim Miller's fighting, and I'm happy about that.
Can I just ask one question? What's the Spencer Kite undercard fight of the weekend here and UFC?
Oh, I got to give some love to Jessica Rose Clark, because I think she is putting some stuff together. I'm really interested to see, now that she's settled at CSW, now that she's figured out the division. She'll be the first to tell you, if you follow her on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. She said, like, yep, 34, but finally got my life together. I've got everything settled, and I think I'm getting better. I think she is too. But the one I'm looking forward to the most is Gabriel Benitez and David Onama. Onama looked really good against Mason Jones in his very short notice. I fought 3 weeks ago, debut up a division. It's one of those fights to me that a lot of people that don't pay attention to preliminary cards fights probably just let it go by. as soon as I saw that fight, I circled David Onama and was like, yep, when he
Fight
goes
him,
to featherweight, I want to see what happens, because the other part of it is, you know, you get Lorosenko, you get Jeff Molina, you get James Krause, all saying, wait till you see this guy at featherweight. And I have great faith and respect for all three of those people. So when they tell me pay attention, I'm going to pay attention.
What's been the crack with James Krause's gym lately, though? It seems to be loss after loss after loss recently. He had a great run there maybe last year, but seems like the last 3 or 4 months and maybe it's just because he has such a great reputation and his fighters are getting tougher matchups, or they're just taking tougher matchups, but they seems like he hasn't got a UFC or a big win in a long time and lots of losses. What's the crack there?
He's going to have to go in there himself at short notice again, I think, and pick up on.
Go and step up a division and fight Trevin Giles. I think they're running into a little bit of what most in the moment gyms run into, and that's your main guys start doing really well, and then we start signing the second string folks who maybe aren't quite ready, but because they come from your gym and they get a short notice opportunity. I mean, Alan Badeau's the same way, right? Great respect being at MMA Factory, training with Cyril Gahn. He's got a little bit of a reputation. And Tom Aspinall needs an opponent. So you're here, cool. We'll get you in there. And then you kind of stick around, and maybe you shouldn't be sticking around. And so I think that's a little bit of with some of these Glory MMA guys, right? That I know Dakota Bush fought earlier this year. He caught a loss. We haven't seen, sort of, not to disrespect a whole whack of them, but we haven't seen the A-listers, right? We haven't seen Grant Dawson. We haven't seen Julian Marquez. We haven't seen Jeff Molina, but we're getting these other guys that are coming in that aren't quite as sharp as that crew. And it's sort of they're super pumped that there's so many of them in the UFC right now, but it gets to a point with some of these gyms. I mean, we saw it with SBG when everything was going well for them. Suddenly keep bringing in more guys that have more connections to different promotions, and maybe they weren't quite ready for the big stage. I think that's what's happening with them, but I think they'll turn it around, and I think Onama is one of those guys that can be one of their A-listers going forward.
He's got big power on him, and he hurt Mason Jones a couple of times in that fight as well. And Mason Jones is tough as they come. Benitez is coming in there as a near 30-fight veteran too, so it's interesting matchmaking. I'm interested to see if Onama can carry that power. I think he will carry the power, but how long he can, or how long it will take for him to get tired in going down to the 145-pound division. Although, did he take that fight with Mason Jones on short notice? It's possible that he did, and he's a natural one.
He fought 3 weeks before, yeah.
Fought 3 weeks before and took it, I think, on like 5 or 6 days' notice. And
another
so 45
fighter
is his natural weight class.
Yeah, another fighter who's fighting on the undercard is Chaz Skelly, who's been in the UFC since 2014, who has talked before this fight about retirement, which I never like to hear too much. If you're talking about fighting with one foot out the door, it's never a good sign. But does anybody have any thoughts on Chaz? I mean, he hasn't really set the world on fire, but is a veteran of the UFC at this stage.
He's a good takedown defense against. Go on, Johnny. Go on.
This one could be a bit of a mad BJJ matchup. So Mark Streegan, he's from the Philippines? Is that where he's from?
Yep.
Yeah, like he's got some weird submissions that he pulls out of the bag. Like he's a specialist in a scarf hold and things like that. So Skelly is very strong with BJJ as well and likes to get on the ground, but I sort of would worry about him being caught in something this time if he goes for plan A there.
Could be right. He is one of those lads who will take you down, but kind of like lay on you in a place where if he does come up against someone really good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he could get caught. He's one of the few people left in the world who get caught by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, that might be an issue as well. But yeah, he's probably the standout name, I suppose, outside of the couple that we named there. But there's nothing really much like when the co-main event is fucking a heavyweight's brother and some other dudes. You're in a bad fucking way. So this card isn't great. We
talked about it a couple of weeks back. When one fight falls out of these cards, it turns into a nightmare, really, for excitement factor. Look, the trend has been in the last couple of weeks. I mean, you look at last week's card, the 5 early prelims were absolutely phenomenal fights, massively exciting. And then we've seen that even the week before again, where cards are starting off good and kind of slowly fizzling out. But I mean, it's all about jeopardy, and it's all about, I want to see ranked guys fighting ranked guys, or on the guys coming into the cusp of the rankings, but this card really, it does fail to capture the imagination in many ways, but hopefully we see some good fights. I'm sure we will. Let's talk a little bit Bellator, will we? Is everyone up for that? Bellator have another card on Saturday night, Bellator 274, Neiman Gracie versus Logan Storley, which is two really, really good grapplers. So, like, I know you and Graham are talking on the podcast, is what we're probably going to see here, Sean, is normally battles between two really astute grapplers will turn into probably a striking battle. So is that what you're expecting to see here on Saturday night in this fight?
No, but you would never know. Like, Neiman Gracie, I saw some article today saying he was the most well-rounded. Well, he's not saying it, but maybe he's like close to saying that he's the most well-rounded Gracie of all time. I think Vitor Belfort have something to say about that, but he's definitely up there. Like, he can strike, and he's and James Gallagher as well would have something to say about it maybe. And he's obviously very good on the ground. But Logan Storley, I don't think will fear his jiu-jitsu too much. I think he'll take him down. I think he'll say, "Fuck this, I'm taking him down." But also Logan Storley's fighting out of Sanford MMA, and I saw a bit of a training session yesterday that they were doing on Ian Gary's Instagram. And them boys are not holding back. If you go there and you have all them fuckers on the mat, he has no option but to strike. He has no option but to make you striking a little bit better. And his striking, I wouldn't say is terrible. Very much a wrestle boxer, which you would expect him to be, I suppose, considering his wrestling credentials. But if he has improved on the stand-up, which I think he will, and it does turn out to a stand-up matchup, I'm kind of just speculating on improvements, but I would think he will have improved a lot. But I also think what Logan Storley is really good at doing is when he gets a guy to the ground and he can get him into the position he wants to get into, he's very dominant there. Like against Amasov, which in a fight he arguably won, it was one of those ones with no effective grappling and no effective striking. It was basically 15 minutes of takedown attempts and takedown, defense for the whole fight. And it was great, but I don't think Neiman Gracie will even bother defending his takedowns. And if he gets in a position where he can open up and land ground and pound, he has phenomenal ground and pound. And I think Logan Storley will win the fight, and I think a lot of him. He could be the champion at the moment. He's arguably the best fighter in that division. So yeah, that's how I think that one will go. I think he'll take him down. I don't think it'll be 25 minutes, and it's 25 minutes as well. Don't forget the first ever 5-round main event for Bellator.
Harry, being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, does this fight kind of get you excited? We could see some very exciting grappling exchanges here. One of the Gracie old schools in there.
Neiman has an interesting grappling style for MMA, right? We see heel hooks, we see inversions, we see things that aren't just, overhook, closed guard, or looking for triangles, right? We see interesting things from him. Now, something that you find specifically when you're trying to play sport jiu-jitsu against MMA guys with great base, it is really tough to move them. It's really tough to hit those off balances, to get arms away from shoulders and to start opening up submissions, especially if you're on the bottom. So I think if Neiman is going to catch something, it's going to likely be in a scramble. I think that Logan Storley, as Sean's already alluded to, if he gets you down and gets you to a position where he's comfortable and can set his hips, it's going to be real tough to move him without taking tons of damage. But if Neiman is able to create scrambles and is able to 4-point and is able to use turtles and is able to use the fence to make Logan, who the fuck is Logan? To make Logan off balance and have him catching, like if he's shooting for body locks and he can catch Darcy's, or he can look for front headlocks and all of these sorts of things, I think we could be interesting for some really interesting grappling exchanges. But frankly, I think, obviously Jim Miller is clearly going to take Motta's back and finish him because jiu-jitsu works at the highest level. But I would be very surprised if Neiman Gracie was able to work from the bottom into a submission here. I think Logan Storley is more than likely going to grind him out for those 5 rounds and maybe even finish him a ground and pound late.
A very interesting side swipe at Sean Sheehan there during that analysis. Spencer, what do you think of this main event? How do you see it going down?
I agree with Harry pretty much. I mean, Logan Storley is a kid that you see the progression, you see, the accolades from his collegiate wrestling career. He's in the right spot. He's training with guys that have followed a similar path. Like, to be able to just look at Michael Chandler and say, okay, how do I do this thing where I become the best fighter Bellator has for a number of years? And Michael Chandler goes, okay, here's the blueprint. And I think he's following it pretty well right now. And this is a big test. It's certainly the toughest fight he's had thus far. I think everything Harry said about creating scrambles is the thing that Neiman Gracie has to do, because if Logan Storley puts him on his back, he's going to keep him there. And then it's going to be rinse and repeat for 5 rounds. And so it's going to be incumbent on Neiman Gracie to create opportunities for himself, because unlike Michael Bisping likes to encourage people, Logan Storley doesn't have to take any risks here. He can put him on the ground, grind him out, beat him up, advance position a little bit, stay busy a little bit. If there's an opportunity to finish, great. But if not, he'll be okay taking him down, mat returning him, keeping his shoulders on the mat, and keeping him there. And it all falls on Neiman Gracie to create opportunities for himself.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with both you guys. Sean, Denny, do you see this going all 5 rounds as well? Are we in for two 5-round main events? I think, isn't it Bellator's first ever non-title 5-round main event ever?
You need to start listening.
First one ever. I think we're destined for the full 5 rounds. As the old saying goes, if Sambo was easy, they call it jiu-jitsu. Yeah, no, I can see it just turning into a grappling battle. At least that's probably our best case scenario, because we could get some very awkward kickboxing if not.
I've got a great joke about the co-main event.
There was a lot of mic moving there. I knew he had something coming.
Koreshkov is fighting Rincontra, and I think the only chance Rincontra has is his first name. Do you like that one? Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm that one for free. Put that up in fucking Bellator. I'll clip that. You can have it. Go on.
Anything else standing out on this card, lads? I know
Definitely.
Canyon.
Good card.
Definitely. Forget that fight.
Okay.
If Mandel Nallo is on any fight card, you watch him. This fella is a hidden gem in TriStar. He is an absolutely potent striker, and he's one of those fellas that is long and awkward, and he cuts crazy angles, and shots come from places that you don't see and you don't expect, and he's a lot of fun. So if you're looking for some interesting striking, Mandel Nallo is your guy. And an interesting fact, the boys at TriStar, the sport jiu-jitsu boys, Pierre Leclerc, Donnie Graham, Tarza, Krellinston, whatever, even they're talking about how he's a fucking nightmare to grapple with. So Mandel Nallo, I don't know how old Mandel Nallo is. How old is he? Let me just check his record real quick. So Mandel Nallo, okay, he's 32, fine. But he's a guy that has a ton of potential. Whether he'll ever reach it, I do not know. But a ton of potential and a really fun watch. And now I've said that, watch him get whacked in 13 seconds. But he is a lot of fun and a really interesting fighter.
Yeah. At 32, I find it hard to see it's like anyone reaching their true potential. He's got to really put it together in the next couple of years. And that's
very mean, Ian. That's very mean, poor lad.
I know. I know it's not mean. I don't know. I remember him fighting last time. He won a beautiful Superman punch, but didn't really. Yeah, I'm interested to see what he's doing here. I don't know. I'm kind of insulting Bellator fighters a lot lately. Maybe I should just give him a
general. What was it you said about him? No offense, but it's Bellator.
I don't know. I don't know what Bellator's after doing to me.
I like the Franklin versus Soma fight, because Franklin is the type of guy who'll go out and he'll throw 120 punches in the first minute, and Soma is the type of guy who'll go out and throw 2 punches in the first 120 minutes. So that's one of those fights where I think Soma's just gonna like circle and circle and circle and circle like he always does. Franklin will be like, remember Bart Simpson when he did like the fucking thing like that where he's running after Lisa and then just got tired? I think that's what's gonna happen to Franklin. He'll get fucked tired and Soma will just like hit him, boop him on the nose, and he'll just fall down and die in the 3rd round, and Soma will end up winning. That's my prediction. If that happens, be a bold prediction there.
Nice. Anybody else?
No, just me.
Low energy O'Neill tonight, lads. I'm sorry.
I think that. Sorry, Danny.
That is raining, lad, is on.
Yeah, Abdul Ghazali. That's my guy. Let's hit some fucking Imaнаris, my G. Let's go. Yeah, very possible because jiu-jitsu works. You know, it does.
Like, why can I talk about something? Why is Bellator putting on cards at the same night as the UFC? Like, what the hell is going on? It's completely ridiculous that we have to try and balance between these two cards. Bellator are changing nights left, right, and center. This is ridiculous. I mean, they're just taking away from themselves, I think. You know, they should go to the Friday nights and that's it. I'd happily watch a full Bellator card on a Friday night and watch a UFC on a Saturday. I know the UFC card will probably be over before the main fights happen, but yeah, you're missing out on a lot of, like, you're looking at these early fights to try and build potential stars, and if they're going to put them on at the same time as UFC, I think that, you know, a lot of people are probably not going to watch. I just think that it's, what did you call it? Promotional malpractice?
That's the one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Bellator thing, right? Like, you look at this card and it's, the main event is great, and then everybody else is kind of a recycled Bellator name in one way or another. Korshkov coming back, Georgi Karakhanyan's been around forever, Brennan Ward making his return. Shout out to Nolan King, did a great piece on Brennan Ward's life and challenges and addiction problems and things like that. And then you've got Eva Ghazali, you've got Deanna Bennett. Like, you've got a bunch of familiar names that have already kind of washed through either the championship ranks or the contender ranks. And so it feels like one of those, almost a throwaway card. But then why are you putting this main event on and it be your first main event? Like, you could have done a better job with this. And for me, as somebody that is going to watch every UFC event, no matter what, in part because, you know, it's my job, but also because I'm a lunatic that watches literally every fight that the UFC puts out, because I like watching every fight that the UFC puts out. Do as you said, Ian. Put it on Friday. Capitalize on a night to go to pro wrestling for Shawnee, right? You saw NXT tried to go head to head with AEW on Wednesday nights. They said those ratings don't look good. How about Tuesday night? Let's move to Tuesday night now. Get yourself a night, set yourself up, give everybody the best chance possible to see everything that you have, and then just do a better job of promoting these people and putting them in fights that make sense. I feel like Bellator far too often creates these situations where some dude, and the UFC's done it a bit lately, and it's frustrating, where some guy that we already know where they top out at, or that has already been beaten by 2 or 3 people ahead of him in the rankings, faces one of their young cats and beats the young cat, and then the young cat never amounts to anything. I'm very worried that that's going to be the Davion Franklin Sauma fight. Like, that's what that shapes up to me. It feels very Bellator to me in that regard. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they get a good blue chip talent out of Davion Franklin, but I think that's the piece of it for me, is competing with the UFC and just the general Bellatorness of it.
The one thing with Bellator as well, I've been covering all their cards now since I started with Sherdog, like 5 months ago or whatever, and every one of their cards is the exact same. They have a few local guys who doesn't give one bollocks what their record is. Then they have the 4 good main card fights, whether it's a top title fight or like okay, like Karakhanyan and, you know, the old guys we've seen down through the years. But then in every one of these cards, it has like at least 3 undefeated wrestlers who are like 3-0, 4-0, or just good up and coming prospects who, like, let's say if we had them here and they were on Cage Warriors cards, everyone would be waxing lyrical about them. You need to watch these. I think that's what they need to promote more. Like on this card, Jordan Newman is on a 3-0, and he's fighting 2-0 Cody Hart. As you mentioned there, Franklin, Jalen Bates 4-0. Ghazali, which the lads mentioned earlier on, 6-0. They have some really, really good talent here coming through. And now, you know, all of them mightn't make it or whatever. And Justin Montalvo as well, 4-0. But these are the lads we should be talking about. And we, funnily enough, we kind of do when the fights are over, because a lot of times they get good finishes or big knockouts and stuff, because they're actually being match made pretty well at times. Now, as Spencer says, sometimes you get an Aaron Pico and next thing you're 5-4 and it's a big fucking problem. But Bellator have lots of those guys because they're paying very well at the entry level. And we see, you know, in Ireland coming up next week, and I know we'll talk about that card, but you have the likes of Danny McCormack, and you have Dara Kelly making his debut, and previously you had, you know, the up-and-comers like Kiefer Crosby or like Will Flory and the other ones as well. You had people that someone should be invested in. Could they be good in the future? And you know, they had James Gallagher when he was 3 or 4-0 as well. So Bellator have loads of that, and it's because they have less cards and because they have less fighters, they aren't as kind of consumed as the guys in the UFC are. Whereas if there was someone who's 3 or 4 in the UFC, they might have wanted him on each card, and there might be, as you said, there's someone earlier on at 50 fights or something like that. They could be around people with 50 fights, and it's very tough to tell the difference in quality between someone who's 4-0 and improving and someone who's 50-0 might be, or not 50-0, sorry, but like 29 and 21, and who's only slightly better than them, but that means the guy who's fucking 4-0 is going to go to the stars altogether. So I think Bellator need to do a better job of promoting that. Also, Bellator's YouTube channel is fucking horrendous. Like, Bellator's YouTube channel, before all of these cards should be gone, these are the undefeated guys coming up. They show a highlight of this guy, highlight of this guy, highlight of this guy, and, you know, make it a 2-minute fucking video. It wouldn't take that long, and it'd get people excited. A little bit of previews for the main events and stuff like that. They don't do enough of that. They don't promote enough that way, and they have lots of talent to be able to do that. I would say arguably not more than the UFC, but in a greater kind of, with less around us than the UFC. Harry, go on.
A genuine question. A genuine question. Scott Coker has spoken ad nauseum about going out on the regional scenes and picking up the best talent available and promoting them and building them in Bellator. So why aren't they actually doing that? Right? Like, there are a couple of things that we've pointed out here, and I'm going to talk about Cage Warriors because I really like the way that Cage Warriors do their modeling. But if you look at Cage Warriors and you look at the matchmaking that Ian Dean puts together, it's logical, it's well thought out, and fighters are fighting at the right times with the right tests, and then they're built to be the way that Sean has always said, that the best fighters are fighting the best fighters when they are the best, not when, you know, Ian Gary wasn't thrown in against Jack Grant on his debut, right? That was the fight before he jumped off to the UFC. A good high-level guy. Fine, no problems. Like, why, as Shawnee has already said, the Aaron Pico effect, right? Why are we seeing this from Bellator? As Ian already alluded to, why are they going head-to-head with the UFC? We know that this is not going to work. Like, I don't understand the logic here. And even just the live show, right? You watch the actual production. Some of the commentary, horrendous. The desk, horrendous. The only thing that's sometimes useful is the pacing, right? But I've been to a couple of the live Bellator shows in London, and even the production of the live show wasn't great. Now, obviously a Bellator Dublin or a Bellator Ireland anywhere is different because it has the Irish crowd and the Irish contingent always make it a great night. But man, there are so many things that a company of that stature and a promotion of that stature should be nailing all the time. And I don't understand why they're not.
Nice of you to double their attendance by going to Bellator London, though.
I think that the only, like, Harry's definitely right. They're not, like, raising these stars or even giving them a chance. And even if they are, even if they're trying to, like, give someone a spotlight, no one is going to be looking at the early fights because it's on the same time as the UFC main event on Saturday. Like, the prime example that they've done an excellent job with someone like AJ McKee, who has fought all of his fights in Bellator, and he is the only real example that I can think of someone that they've built up from the very start and they've done it the right way. But they definitely need to be doing it more often. But let's be real here. If AJ McKee gets another couple of wins inside Bellator and remains undefeated, he's probably going to make the jump over to the UFC. And that's just the fact of the matter, I think. It's like if they don't pay him enough or if he wants to test himself, if they're not building these stars to come up and take on AJ McKee, he's just going to have to stay beating the same guys and the same guys again over at Bellator. And if you're going to be competitive, you're going to get sick of that and you're going to want to change the scenery. It's not because I think that we want to put this Bellator on UFC is better than Bellator kind of a thing, but it's more so you need to be building the competition for the champions.
The zone deal as well, that's massive. The fact that went and they don't have that money anymore. Like, I was talking to a couple of lads at the last Bellator, and they were basically saying that to me. Well, I'm like, why did this guy get cut? Why did this guy get cut? And he's like, well, cost cutting. And I remember saying it at the time, and a lot of people were kind of poo-pooing it and saying, no, they have plenty of money. That's nothing got to do with anything. Well, I don't know. I'm sure they have a champions clause or whatever for a guy like AJ McKee as well. And I think they will end up keeping him for a good while anyway, because they will continue to pay him pretty well. And the UFC are probably offering him 10 and 10 to come over because they've probably never even heard of him. But Yeah, that's a big. I think that the zone deal going is a way bigger deal than anyone has ever talked about. I think it's massive because they won't be able to sign as many of these newer up and coming fighters and give them 20 grand a fight. Because with all due respect, the UFC, okay, paying guys 10 and 10 or 12 and 12, it's not much money. But if you're a Bellator and you're not earning that much money, then fucking paying guys 20 grand to be an undercard fight is a lot of money, So I don't know. What were you going to say, Splinter?
Well, I was going to say the other piece to me is that for all the years that Scott Coker, even in Strikeforce successfully beforehand, and now in Bellator, has said, like, we're not going to bring in all the UFC guys. We don't want to be like the UFC. We're our own company. We're our own company. And it very much seems like UFC light, right? Like a lot of their biggest names are UFC cast-offs. And I don't say cast-offs in a like, they're not good fighters. They're what, like getting Ryan Bader was great. Getting Benson Henderson when they got Benson Henderson was great. Getting Phil Davis when Phil Davis and Phil Davis still is a good fighter. You're making your face, but he's useful. He's useful in that division, right? He would be very useful for the UFC at 205 right now. But a lot of it is you bring it it's as simple as to what Harry's saying about the production and the development of the show. You bring in Mike Goldberg, and Mike Goldberg is using these same catchphrase lines that you could just hit the buttons on the recorder to play them. When there's a knockout, it's all over. When they're like, it's just the same thing, and it just feels like mid 2000s UFC where we're seeing the same fighters. It's the same stable of guys, and then the problem to the younger guys that we've talked about is they rush them to this point, or they get them to this point where they're clobbering cans and they're clobbering local guys that they're absolutely going to beat, aside from Aaron Pico in his debut. And then they get in there with somebody that they should be, in terms of record, ready to face, but in terms of actual experience and in terms of actual skill and development, they're often not ready to face them. And it goes sideways in a hurry, and you end up looking at Ed Ruth, who looked great for a while and now is bottomed out. And I hope it doesn't happen with Logan Storley. I don't think it's going to happen with Logan Storley. We're seeing Pico build himself back up, but they're missing that middle ground because they don't have the resources to have that middle class of talent that you can continue to work through. Like Georgi Karakhanyan is a guy that's been there forever, but he's also too experienced and too talented for these young NCAA wrestlers that when they're 3 and 4 fights in, for them to be jumping in with. So they need to figure out how to have that middle ground, or else it's just going to continue to be exactly what it is right now going forward.
Yeah, I don't really know. Like, you get it so right with AJ McKee and you get it so wrong with someone like Aaron Pico. I mean, there needs to be that middle ground there. They need to get that talent in there. You know, you look at even Pitbull, who's been rematched with AJ McKee in down the line there. He had to beat guys twice in his title reign. I mean, it gets stale after a while, and I think they really need to look at that if they are going to progress. And I know, were you going to come in there with something, Sean Denny?
Yeah, I just was going to say that Kayla Harrison is going to save us all. She'll be the one that makes the difference.
Sign her up. Sign her up. We want to love Bellator. We want to enjoy Bellator. Bellator, please let it happen for us. We want it. They make it so hard right now. Sean, were you going to say something before we go?
Last thing, Monday, 8 p.m. probably. The shoey is coming. Bellator Dublin preview. I promised if Taito Ivasa would win, I was the only one of you motherfuckers to pick him. I was right. And I don't know why I'm doing a shoey, because I was fucking right. But anyway, I'm doing a shoey Monday on this live stream. Everybody tune fucking in. There'll be beer drank. I actually think I might have drank my last can of Harp. Harp is like €5 a can now, so I probably won't be getting more of it. Heineken from a shoe Monday evening. Bellator Dublin preview. We'll all be here. Join in.
Never mind the pandemic in Ireland. It's all about the candemic in Ireland right now. The cans have gone through the roof. It's cost a small fortune to get another slab of cans. Poor Sean's heart is broken down there, but he's still going to do the shoey. He's still going to give it to the fans. It's been low energy O'Neill for most of this podcast. I'm going to go out with high energy. I'm going to say thank you to our sponsors, All Real Nutrition Bars. Head on over there. Grab yourself some of the delicious protein bars on the market. Enter the code word SevereMMA. Get yourself 15% off. It's the bargain of the century, lads. Do it. Everybody go over there. And we'll see you the next time. We'll catch you on Monday for the Bellator preview. We'll be back next week again for the UFC. Spencer, hopefully you'll join us again to drop some knowledge bombs. Sean will probably be at Bellator, perhaps. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll be down on points.
The boys will be on the beer, but myself and Harry and Spencer will be putting in the hard graft over here.
Don't you fucking worry. We'll be here.
Thanks for everybody for listening, and we'll catch you all. Then, actually, go follow BJJ_Harry Powell, at Denny Rance, at Sean Sheehan Ba, at Spencer Kai, at O'Neill MMA. Good luck and thanks.
Don't follow me.